environment, upon a finding that the waiver or alternative requirement is necessary to expedite or facilitate the use of amounts made available under this section. Definitions. For purposes of this section, the following definitions shall apply. 1. Colonia area. The term colonia area means any census tract that a. is an area of the United States within 150 miles of the contiguous border between the United States and Mexico, except as otherwise determined by the Secretary, and b. lacks potable water supply, adequate sewage systems, and lack of decent, safe, sanitary housing, and other objective criteria as approved by the Secretary. 2. Eligible manufactured home community. The term eligible manufactured home community means a community that a. meets the affordable housing safe harbor requirements of the Internal Revenue Service under Section 601. (201) of Title 26, Code of Federal Regulations, and b. is owned by the residents of the manufactured housing community through a resident-controlled entity, as defined by the Secretary, in which at least 2/3 of residents are member owners of the landowning entity, or 2. the Secretary otherwise determines is subject to such binding agreements as are necessary to ensure that the manufactured housing community will be maintained as such a community, and affordable for low-income families, as such term is defined in Section 104 of the Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act, 42 U.S.C. 12704, on a long-term basis. 3. Eligible recipient. The term eligible recipient means a partnership of a grantee under Section 106 of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, 42 U.S.C.5306, and b. an eligible manufactured home community, a non-profit entity, or a consortia of non-profit entities working with an eligible manufactured home community. 4. Manufactured home community. The term manufactured home community means any community, court, or park equipped to accommodate manufactured homes for which pad sites, with or without existing manufactured homes or other allowed homes, or other suitable sites, are used primarily for residential purposes, with any additional requirements as determined by the Secretary, including any manufactured housing community as such term is used for purposes of the Program of the Federal National Mortgage Association for Multifamily Loans for Manufactured Housing Communities and the Program of the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation for Loans for Manufactured Housing Communities. F. Implementation. The Secretary shall have authority to issue such regulations or other notices, guidance, forms, instructions, and publications as may be necessary or appropriate to carry out the programs, projects, or activities authorized under this section, including to ensure that such programs, projects, or activities are completed in a timely and effective manner. Sec. 40102. Lead-based paint hazard control and housing-related health and safety hazard mitigation in housing of families with lower incomes. A. Appropriation. In addition to amounts otherwise made available, there is appropriated to the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, in this section referred to as the Secretary, for fiscal year 2022, out of any money in the Treasury not otherwise appropriated, $6,430,000,000 for grants to states, units of general local government, Indian tribes or their tribally designated housing entities, and non-profit organizations for the activities under subsection C, in target housing units, and common areas servicing such units, where low-income families reside or are expected to reside that is not public housing, housing assisted by project-based rental assistance under Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937, 42 U.S.C. 1437F, including under subsection O. 13 of such section, nor housing assisted under Section 202 of the Housing Act of 1959, 12 U.S.C. 1701Q, or Section 811 of the Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act, 42 U.S.C. 8013, 2. $500 million for grants to state or local governments or non-profit entities for the activities in subsection C, in target housing units, and common areas servicing such units, that are being assisted under the Weatherization Assistance Program authorized under Title IV of the Energy Conservation and Production Act, 42 U.S.C. 6851. etc., but are not public housing, housing assisted by project-based rental assistance under Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937, 42 U.S.C. 1437F, including under subsection O. 13 of such section, nor housing assisted under Section 202 of the Housing Act of 1959. 12 U.S.C. 1701Q, or Section 811 of the Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act, 42 U.S.C. 8013, 3. $2 billion for grants to owners of a property receiving project-based rental assistance under Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937. 42 U.S.C. 1437F, including under subsection O. 13 of such section, that meets the definition of target housing and that has not received a grant for similar purposes under this Act for the activities in subsection C, except subsection C. 2. In target housing units receiving such assistance and common areas servicing such units, 4. $810 million for costs related to training and technical assistance to support identification and mitigation of lead and housing-related health and safety hazards, research, and evaluation related to activities under this section. And 5. $260 million for the costs to the Secretary of administering and overseeing the implementation of this section, and the Secretary's lead hazard reduction and related programs generally including information technology, financial reporting, research and evaluations, other cross-program costs in support of programs administered by the Secretary in this Act, and other costs the Secretary may transfer and merge. Amounts appropriated under this paragraph to Section 40301. Amounts appropriated by this section shall remain available until September 30, 2031. B. Terms and conditions. 1. Income eligibility determinations. Notwithstanding any inconsistent requirements, the Secretary may make income determinations of eligibility for enrollment of housing units for grants awarded under A. Subsection A. 1. Using criteria under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, 42 U.S.C. 5301 et seq., Title II of the Cranston-Gonzalez National Affordable Housing Act, 42 U.S.C. 12701 et seq., Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937, 42 U.S.C. 1437F, Title IV of the Energy Conservation and Production Act, 42 U.S.C. 6851 et seq., Section 2605 of the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Act of 1981, 42 U.S.C. 8624, or Section 2044 of Title 38, United States Code, as determined appropriate by the Secretary. B. Subsection A. 2. Using criteria under Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937, 42 U.S.C. 1437F, or Title IV of the Energy Conservation and Production Act, 42 U.S.C. 6851 et seq. 2. Housing families with young children, an owner of rental property that receives assistance under subsection A. 3. Shall give priority in renting units for which the lead-based paint has been abated pursuant to subsection A. 3. For not less than 3 years following the completion of lead abatement activities, to families with a child under the age of 6 years. 3. Administrative expenses. A recipient of a grant under this section may use up to 10% of the grant for administrative expenses associated with the activities funded by this section. C. Eligible activities. Grants awarded under this section shall be used for 1. Abatement of lead-based paint in target housing. 2. Interim controls of lead-based paint hazards in target housing. 3. Lead-based paint inspections. 4. Lead risk assessments. 5. Lead hazard control clearance examinations. 6. Testing for housing-related health and safety hazards. 7. Mitigation of housing-related health and safety hazards, including lead faucets, fixtures, and interior lines. 8. Technical assistance. 9. Providing work practices training to local residents. 10. Outreach and engagement with community stakeholders, including stakeholders in disadvantaged communities. 11. Capacity building. 12. Program evaluation and research. 13. Environmental reviews. Or 14. Activities that directly or indirectly support the work under this section, as applicable, that without which such activities could not be conducted. D. Environmental review. For purposes of environmental review pursuant to the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, 42 U.S.C. 4321 et seq., and other provisions